I am the true daughter of the noble house, having spent 14 years in the countryside, and at last, my parents have found me. The residence is imbued with an antique charm, adorned with lush green leaves of magnolia bonsai, filling the air with a delightful fragrance. My biological mother, Wu Qingshu, gazes at me with tears of warmth brimming in her eyes. Yunxin, I have also nurtured Shanfu for over a decade, and I truly cannot bear to send her to the countryside to endure hardship. From now on, you two shall be like sisters. I respond with a gentle smile. Indeed, dear mother. However, I find it difficult to part with my previous foster parents. May they accompany me to live in the noble residence? 1. Subsequently, my adoptive parents, the biological parents of Song Shanfu, took up residence in the mansion alongside me. One was a frequent patron of gambling establishments, while the other toiled as a laborer in a brothel, having never encountered the esteemed elite throughout their lives. Yet, they merrily settled into the opulent residence of the minister. They expressed no gratitude towards me, merely feeling that they had benefited from their biological daughter's fortune. It was essential to bear children, without Shanfu. How could we ever have experienced such fortune in this life? After all, it was my mother who was capable of giving birth. The pair wandered about, their naivete evident. Yet this demeanor only served to embarrass Song Shanfu. Her current status was already awkward, and having such parents made her feel as though the servants regarded her differently, leaving her utterly uncomfortable. Father, mother, this pastry is delicious. Do try some. I picked up 2 pieces of lotus powder osmanthus cake and placed them in their bowls. Upon hearing my voice, Chen Xing and Zhao Guizhi's expressions instantly soured, yet recalling my status, they forced themselves to muster a strained smile. It was troublesome. They knew full well that it was by my invitation that they could enjoy a life of luxury here, yet they still regarded me with disdain. I understood. Having served them for over a decade, a sudden shift in roles must have been disconcerting. From a young age, I had been the servant of the household, responsible for cooking and chopping firewood, all alone. In the beginning, my lack of skill and strength led to the destruction of several clay pots, resulting in Qinxing's brutal beatings. It was only due to Zhao Guizhi's fear of me being killed that she sought out a few medicinal remnants at the village entrance for a few coins. A person who had been treated worse than a dog now suddenly transformed into the true daughter of the minister, unable to be scolded or beaten, and obliged to ingratiate herself, even affecting the status of their own biological daughter. It was indeed a difficult predicament. Qinxing took a sip of wine, smacked his lips, and was about to reprimand me when he caught the gaze of my biological parents from the corner of his eye, abruptly remembering he was in the minister's residence. Song Shanfu, too, felt embarrassed and dryly suggested, "Let us eat, the food is getting cold." Zhao Guizhi tugged at Qinxing's sleeve, and the pair, eyes cast down, began to eat, not daring to utter a single word. However, their manners were exceedingly unrefined, slurping soup and making loud noises while eating vegetables. Minister Song Ziyuan rarely dined at home, but upon hearing of his biological daughter's return, he made an exception for lunch. Yet, the dining habits of these two were utterly unappetizing, leading him to set down his chopsticks, claiming he was full, and retreated to his study. Soon after, the minister's wife, Wu Qishu, wiped her mouth and, with a polite yet distant tone, remarked, "Please, take your time." Chen Xing and Zhao Guizhi, lacking any awareness, still had food in their mouths and waved their hands, saying, "You both go about your business, we can manage on our own." Song Shanfu's lips turned pale with anger, her gaze downcast, utterly pitiful. Song Chengwei glanced at me, frowning, his displeasure evident, his impatience nearly overflowing. I didn't need to guess. He surely believed I should not allow these 2 troublesome individuals to remain, ruining everyone's appetite at the table. However, their thoughts were of no concern to me. I calmly picked up the dishes they had not touched. If I did not retain these 2 old nuisances, how could I make Song Shanfu uncomfortable? The suffering I had endured for over a decade could not be erased with a mere apology. 2. As night fell, my mother Wu Qishu gently knocked on the door. She had been raised in privilege, a talented woman of the capital before her marriage to Song Ziyuan, who ascended to the position of minister. Thus it could be said that she was destined for a life of comfort. Initially, she took my hand and spoke softly, inquiring if I was accustomed to my new living arrangements, whether there were any dietary restrictions, and if I was satisfied with the decor of my room. Soon, however, her tone shifted. Yunshin, your adoptive parents have been residing in the mansion for over a month now. Is there anyone tending to the agriculture at home? Is it not time to address your return? The mansion was grand, with numerous rules, and their presence must have been uncomfortable for them. Yet they wouldn't dare voice it. Shall I speak to them on your behalf? Chen Xing and Zhao Guizhi could be regarded as the lowest tier of society, having engaged in all manner of endeavors to survive. I had long anticipated that within a month, the mansion would struggle to endure the presence of these two parasites. Yet, they were still too dignified. To rid ourselves of such leeches was not an easy task. If we did not confront them directly, they would continue to feign ignorance. But if we did, they would resort to tears and tantrums, even threatening to use Song Shanfu as leverage. Then, it would depend on whether my biological parents were willing to compromise. With this thought, I said nothing further, merely nodding in compliance. You're right, Mother. The lifestyles of our families differ significantly. I shall speak to them about this matter tomorrow. 3. The following day. When Chen Xing and Zhao Guizhi heard the butler subtly suggesting they pack their belongings, their expressions immediately changed. Transitioning from simplicity to luxury is easy, but from luxury to simplicity is arduous. A month of lavish feasting had spoiled their appetites and emboldened their tempers. This is unacceptable. My biological daughter is still here. I will not go anywhere. Indeed, our daughter has lived away from us in your mansion since childhood. Now that our family can finally reunite and enjoy our time together, how can you dare to separate us? Their grandiloquent speeches were met with knowing glances from everyone in the mansion, who understood that the couple was merely coveting the riches and splendor of the residence. The butler wore a mocking expression, and even the nearby servants whispered among themselves. At that moment, Song Shanfu emerged, drawing everyone's attention. You should return home. I will visit you when time permits. She spoke with grace, her demeanor composed, offering no room for criticism. Upon hearing this, Chen Xing and Zhao Guizhi were momentarily taken aback, seemingly unprepared for such treatment from their biological daughter. Resolute, Zhao Guizhi sat down on the floor, beating her legs, and began to wail. Oh, daughter, how can I bear to part with you? You have been separated from us since childhood, and now that we have finally reunited, why must you chase us away? Your mother speaks the truth. Either we all stay together, or we all leave together. Chen Xing, standing beside Zhao Guizhi, defiantly refused to back down. I stood by, watching the spectacle unfold, finding this family rather amusing. It was evident to anyone with eyes that they had grown accustomed to the comforts of the mansion and had no desire to return to their previous life of hardship. However, they had no legitimate reason to remain in the minister's residence. If they invoked Song Shanfu, they would gain leverage. Song Shanfu's lips were pressed tightly together, as if desperately suppressing her emotions. Over the past month, this so-called biological pair had driven her to the brink of collapse. Their failure to support her in her awkward position only served to drag her down further, turning her into a laughingstock throughout the mansion. At this moment, Song Shanfu was yet unaware that her disdain for her biological parents was deeply ingrained within her. For this farce quickly reached Wu Qishu's ears. Upon hearing that they intended to take Song Shanfu back to the countryside, her expression faltered, filled with reluctance. Though she knew her daughter was not her biological child, having raised her for over a decade, the bond of maternal affection could not be easily severed. Moreover, seeing Song Shanfu kneeling before her, tears streaming down her face, only intensified her sympathy. Mother, I grew up in the minister's residence. You, father, and my brother are my true family. Even if I am not your biological daughter, I wish to shamelessly remain. Is that all right? I will not compete with Yunshin for anything. Upon hearing these words, Wu Qishu's eyes reddened, and she gently stroked her daughter's back, reassuring her, rest assured, my dear, no one can tear us apart. You may stay in the mansion for as long as you wish. I stood outside the door, listening to their heartfelt exchange, choosing not to interrupt their profound mother-daughter bond. After a while, Song Shanfang emerged from the room, her eyes red-rimmed. Approaching me as I stood on the porch, she informed me that her mother had retired for the night and suggested I return later if I had matters to discuss. I nodded in acknowledgement, indicating that I had no pressing issues to relay to her mother. Observing the relief wash over her face, I continued, in truth, it isn't just you. I too feel that their presence here is rather inappropriate. Perhaps you should find them a means of livelihood? My father had previously worked as a laborer, and her mother had once cared for the courtesans of the home courtyard. Song Shanfang looked at me in astonishment, her surprise evident in her gaze. She was astute and quickly grasped my implication. How scandalous it would be for one's biological parents to serve as mere servants in the residence, while she enjoyed the title of a cherished daughter of the house. What are your intentions? She inquired, tilting her head as if feigning ignorance of my words. If you hadn't suggested they stay, none of this turmoil would have arisen. She remarked, her tone laced with an undisguised malice that she hadn't even realized she possessed, clearly indicating her disdain for her biological parents had reached a boiling point. I smiled softly and replied, it is, of course, due to the affection I hold for the years of nurturing, much like how you cherish your own biological parents. Upon hearing this, Song Shanhua's tone turned prideful, declaring, Mother just said I would not be leaving the residence. Her voice was resolute, even tinged with a hint of provocation. I felt no embarrassment or anger, simply a sense of joy at her words. That is indeed for the best. I am sure your adoptive parents feel the same way. When Qin Xing and his wife heard of my intention to secure them a livelihood, they erupted in outrage. Have you lost your senses? Why would I abandon the comforts of the residence to toil like a lowly wretch? Mother, this is merely a suggestion. As you can see, the residence does not seem particularly welcoming of your continued presence here, receiving handouts without contributing, I countered. How can you speak so harshly? What do you mean by receiving handouts? I raised you to this age. I have yet to account for the hardships I endured in doing so. Moreover, my biological daughter resides here. Why shouldn't I also be allowed to stay? As the prospect of a life of luxury slipped increasingly from their grasp, Zhao Guizhi's demeanor grew frantic. I observed the couple silently, choosing not to intervene as they shouted, knowing that their escalating frenzy would only bring further shame upon Song Shanfang. In the blink of an eye, my coming-of-age ceremony arrived, coinciding with Song Shanfang's birthday. The residence hosted a grand banquet, inviting the prominent families of the capital, both to celebrate our birthdays and to formally recognize Song Shanfang as my adopted sister. Qin Sheng and his wife could hardly contain their glee, believing that their biological daughter had now become an adopted daughter, elevating their status to that of the newly affluent. As I surveyed the lavishly decorated banquet, the couple felt an overwhelming sense of fortune. In the back courtyard, Song Shanfang and I were attempting to tailor the new fabrics delivered by the seamstress. As I caressed the smooth, soft silk, an overwhelming sensation of unreality washed over me. Gazing into the mirror at the girl with cold, unfeeling eyes, I felt a profound sense of unfamiliarity. My mother stood nearby, arranging my hairpins, and inadvertently caught sight of the long scar on my neck. With a tone of surprise and concern, she inquired, Xiner, what happened here? Qin Xing and Zhao Guizhi turned their gaze toward me, their eyes trembling as if recalling something. I smiled faintly, clearly they had not forgotten. When I was 8 years old, Qin Xing and Zhao Guizhi had engaged in a drunken brawl, hurling insults at one another from afternoon until nightfall. I had hidden in the woodshed, afraid to utter a word lest I provoke their ire and receive another beating. Once they grew weary of their quarrel and declared their hunger, I hurriedly served the meal I had prepared, retreating to the side to wait for them to finish so I could scavenge scraps. However, Zhao Guizhi, already in a foul mood, deliberately tossed her chopsticks aside, exclaiming, Did you forget to add salt? This is tasteless. Are you doing this on purpose? At her words, I trembled in fear, quickly kneeling and pleading for mercy, explaining that we had run out of salt and that I had been too busy to procure more. Zhao Guizhi, consumed by her anger, dismissed my explanations, striking me across the face. What use have I for you after raising you this long? Look at other children your age. They are already earning money. We haven't even sent you out to face the world, and you can't even prepare a simple meal properly. You cry at the slightest provocation. You're a born wretch, and I wonder who gave birth to you. Each time I heard such words, confusion washed over me. She was my mother. Yet her constant berating bewildered me. Eventually, I came to understand that she had always known I was not her biological daughter, which explained her cruel treatment. After delivering a thorough beating, Zhao Guizhi's rage did not subside. She dragged me into the woodshed. Terrified, I could do nothing but plead for mercy, promise to behave, and assure her that I would never again act as I had. Yet, Zhao Guizhi would not listen to my words. She seized the knife from the cutting board and swung it toward my face. In my attempt to evade, I exposed my neck and the blade grazed my skin, leaving a long, crimson mark. I had been playing carelessly and accidentally bumped into a stone step. As I traced the now painless scar, I answered nonchalantly. Seeing that I had not revealed the truth, Zhao Guizhi's tense demeanor relaxed. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught her expression, far from feeling guilty. She seemed to take satisfaction in my continued fear of her, believing I would not dare to speak the truth. She then flitted over to Song Shanfang, examining her closely and helping to arrange her hairpins. Song Shanfang wore a garment from the same tailor as mine, the styles similar yet differing slightly in color. Her neck was adorned with a longer sleeve, her skin as delicate as cream, clearly a product of pampered upbringing. My mother gently touched my scar. Her voice thick with emotion. Yunxin, you have suffered. Who could disagree? I thought. These 14 years felt like an endless torment in hell, yet thankfully, I had awakened and clawed my way out of that abyss. In truth, I knew that had I divulged the reality of my mistreatment, the beatings I endured, they would feel compassion for me and perhaps offer me greater affection. However, they would certainly never consider sending Song Shanfang back to the countryside, for they could not bear the thought of their beloved daughter returning to such a household. My parents would even seek to explain that such hardship would be unbearable for Shanfang, and raising 2 daughters would pose no difficulty for the residents, rendering it unnecessary. The truth is, I was a stranger to them. The intimacy we shared was merely an illusion crafted by the bonds of blood. Attending such a banquet for the first time, I felt somewhat out of my depth and even a touch bored. The primary reason being that I did not recognize any of the esteemed guests, lacking any common ground for conversation, unsure of how to navigate the social waters. I could only sit quietly, watching Song Shanfang flit about the crowd like a little bee. Soon, her friends arrived at the residence, and they gathered in the pavilion, chatting leisurely, with even Song Chengwei joining them, creating a scene of jubilant merriment. The stone table was laden with several exquisitely wrapped gifts, clearly of considerable value. Among them was a lively girl who, having shared a joke, elicited soft laughter from Song Shanfang as she covered her mouth. Perhaps noticing my gaze, she turned to me, her eyes gleaming with pride and boastfulness. Didn't he, Brother Chengwei, bring a gift for Shanfang? That question is superfluous. When has Brother Chengwei ever failed to select a thoughtful gift for Shanfang? Amidst the laughter, Song Chengwei presented a brilliant red pigeon blood gemstone. Instantly, gasps of astonishment filled the air. This is a jade stone tribute from the northern regions to the palace. Brother Chengwei truly possesses talent. How did he manage to acquire such a treasure? In comparison, the jade hairpin I had gifted seemed utterly insignificant. Song Shanfang took the gemstone, examining it closely. Her delight unmistakable. Thank you, brother. I knew you would be the best to me. Song Chengwei gently ruffled her hair, his tone imbued with affection. If a brother does not treat his sister well, who else would he treat kindly? Observing the profound bond shared by the two, I couldn't help but chuckle. Sister. What then am I? At that moment, a strikingly beautiful woman approached me, her curious gaze appraising my figure. You must be the true heiress of this young residence. Unsure whether she was friend or foe, I offered a subdued nod. She then exclaimed softly, "You bear a striking resemblance to the Prime Minister's wife." I refrained from voicing my thoughts, as it was true that I bore a 7/10 likeness to my mother. She continued, "Since childhood, I have always felt that Song Shanfu and the Prime Minister's wife were nothing alike. My mother would chastise me for speaking nonsense and urged me to keep my opinions to myself, but today I have finally validated my perspective." I pursed my lips and politely replied, "Thank you." She, however, was quite sociable, taking a seat beside me, popping pastries from the plate into her mouth as she chatted. Your brother truly is a fool. His biological sister is right here, yet he seeks to please that false sister. Is he out of his mind? Her tone was light and playful, causing me to lower my guard unconsciously. Noticing my gaze upon her, she tilted her head and asked, "Am I wrong?" Uncertain of her true identity, I dared not comment further, responding neutrally, "It is his prerogative to treat whomever he wishes well." I cannot compel him to show me kindness simply because we share blood. Her voice carried a hint of frustration. You are remarkably good-natured. How can you remain unperturbed by this? I too took a piece of pastry and placed it in my mouth. It was impossible not to harbor resentment. Had he been the one taken away all those years ago, he might not have fared better than I in such a household. With a father addicted to gambling and a mother who drank excessively, their quarrels would erupt whenever they lost a game or became inebriated, turning violent. Attending school was out of the question. I was confined to the home, toiling endlessly, cooking, washing, cleaning, without a moment to myself. A slight misstep in speech would result in a brutal beating. The most terrifying moments came at night, when I dared not fall into a deep sleep, terrified of the gnarled hands that might creep into my bed. Suddenly, I found myself at a standstill, seemingly taken aback by my words. She stood in silence for a long while before slowly apologizing. I was not particularly bothered, rather, I found it curious. Despite having returned to this young residence for some time, I had never divulged this experience to anyone, nor had I ever complained. Yet, upon encountering this girl, I felt compelled to reveal my innermost thoughts. I smiled gently. You need not apologize. This is not your fault. As guests gradually arrived for the banquet, I noticed Qinxing and Zhao Guizhi had yet to make their appearance. I excused myself to her and made my way to the rear courtyard. To my surprise, I found Qinxing seated at a stone table and inquired as to why he was absent from the festivities. He pouted. Your mother fears I might get drunk and cause a scene, so she forbade me from joining. Zhao Guizhi was indeed quite considerate. After all, she was his biological daughter. Yet, I could not allow her to have her way. Feigning indignation on Qinxing's behalf, I remarked, this is a day of great joy. As Shanfu's biological father, how can you sit alone in the courtyard? Qinxing nodded vigorously, agreeing with my sentiment. I then shifted my tone. However, mother does have a point. The dishes today are truly extraordinary. Is there anything you wish to eat? I can bring you some, along with a jug of wine. Qinxing nodded eagerly, praising my thoughtfulness and filial piety. Father, if mother finds out about this, she will certainly scold me. I bit my lip, appearing quite troubled. Qinxing assured me fervently. Just one cup will be fine. I want to tell your mother it was you who brought it. Upon hearing his promise, I swiftly made my way to the kitchen, retrieving 2 plates of pig's head meat and a large jug of vintage wine. Qinxing's eyes lit up at the sight of the food, and he began to eat voraciously, waving me off to leave. As I returned to the main hall, I unexpectedly collided with my brother in the corridor. I had no intention of nurturing any feelings towards him and prepared to merely brush past. Song Yunshin, he called, catching my sleeve. Hearing this name struck me as rather amusing, for just moments ago, my parents had introduced me to the guests as Song Yunshin. Yet my biological brother still called me by my former name. Not feeling angered, I turned to inquire what he wanted. I know you feel wronged, but none of this is Shanfu's fault. Can you refrain from targeting her? I regarded him with confusion, unsure of the meaning behind his words. Your treatment of her is unrelated to me, and likewise, my feelings towards her do not concern you. His tone grew urgent, tinged with impatience. Are you finished? It was not Shanfu's fault that she was swapped at birth. Why must you hold it against her? Why not confront our parents about it? Listening to Song Qingyue's tone as if it were a matter of course, I felt no resentment or sadness, only a rising irritation. I wish you and your future children a fate where they are switched at birth, left to suffer from hunger and cold, beaten regularly and burdened with endless chores, their only desire being to see the sun rise each day. After 15 years, someone suddenly reveals to them that they are the scions of a wealthy family. But upon their return, they must bow their heads and live as mere mortals, forbidden to harbor even a trace of resentment. Being brought back is already a testament to our benevolence. Upon hearing my curse, my brother's fury ignited. Say that again? If your hearing is poor, seek a physician. I cannot cure you. Song Chunghua trembled with rage, finding this new sister utterly incomprehensible and impossible to communicate with. Just as tensions escalated, Song Shanfu approached. Her eyes filled with concern, yet her gaze subtly drifted towards me. Brother, what are you discussing with Yunshin? He is saying that the Song family has but one daughter. And I should know my place, I replied. Though I had spoken candidly, a bitter pang lingered in my heart. prompting me to hasten towards the garden in an attempt to regain my composure. However, I soon spotted Song Shanfu's companions trailing behind, their eyes laced with mockery, as if regarding me as a mere servant. "Is your vision impaired, or is it your mind that is troubled?" I inquired with feigned concern. "What did you say?" She turned to me, her expression incredulous. "I thought you were afflicted with an eye ailment," I replied earnestly. She inhaled deeply several times, struggling to articulate a response. Once they departed, I noticed something glimmering among the flowers and bent down to discover it was the pigeon blood ruby I had seen earlier. Intriguing. The schemes of these noble ladies were laughably pathetic. They had come to attend my coming-of-age ceremony, and I intended to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Clutching the gem tightly, I made my way back to the main hall. Zhao Guizhi was amidst the crowd, laughing boisterously, creating quite the lively atmosphere. I overheard her covering her mouth as she spoke to Song Shanfu, her voice loud enough to carry. "The man in the crimson-purple robe next door is the youngest son of the Grand General, yet to be wed. He is of a similar age to you. How about I introduce you to him?" Song Shanfu's expression darkened immediately, feeling utterly humiliated as her own mother began arranging her marriage right after her coming-of-age ceremony. She scolded softly, "This is none of your business." Zhao Guizhi, sensing her anger, pouted and retreated to the rear hall. I took a roundabout route to position myself ahead of her, feigning interest in the gem. As anticipated, Zhao Guizhi took the bait, striding over to snatch the ruby from my hand. "Mother, I just found this. I don't even know whose it is." She rolled her eyes, swatting my outstretched hand away. "Leave it be, I will inquire about it." I feigned urgency. "No need, mother. I shall ask others in this young residence." She suddenly raised her voice. "Have you not been disciplined in a while? Are you itching for a beating?" My body froze, seemingly frightened by her words, and she turned away, satisfied. A smile crept upon my lips. The fish had taken the bait. The banquet had yet to commence when my mother, Wu Qishu, took my hand and introduced me to the elders of the Wu and Song families, as well as several esteemed ladies of the officialdom. The child's features bore an uncanny resemblance to those of Qishu. Truly, the blood ties were evident. "Oh dear, Qishu, how fortunate you are to have two daughters. You have made me quite envious. The youngest in my family is of an age with Yunxin. Have you ever considered an alliance with us?" The elders jested warmly, lavishing praises upon me. Standing awkwardly to the side, Song Shanfu appeared increasingly uncomfortable, her countenance darkening. The dynamics of the official circle are notoriously pragmatic. Those of value are drawn near, while the insignificant are relegated to the margins. In this gathering, it was her inaugural experience as a mere specter, her discomfort palpable. Yet, she continued to trail behind my mother and me, wearing a strained smile that seemed on the verge of cracking. It was only when we arrived at another table that she halted her steps. I turned to glance at her, my own expression mimicking a taunting smile. As my mother and I engaged in conversation with the general's wife, Song Shanfu glided over to our side, accompanied by the girl who had recently lost a jewel in the garden. They exchanged glances with me, covering their mouths in suppressed laughter, as though I were the subject of their amusement. "Mihi, have you made a mistake?" Song Shanfu suddenly raised her voice, discussing loudly behind us. "How could that be?" At that moment, it was just she and I in the garden. The instant she departed, the jewel I was safeguarding for you vanished. Song Shanfu cast a concerned glance in my direction, yet confidently vouched for me, asserting that Yunxin was not of such character. Finally, her remarks piqued my mother's interest, prompting her to inquire about the unfolding events. "Shanfu, Mihi, what are you discussing?" Song Shanfu hesitated, stammering as she recounted the sequence of events. "Mother, my brother gifted me a ruby today, and in my haste to join the banquet, I asked Mihi to safeguard it. However, it has just gone missing. And the only person I encountered during that time was Yunxin." "Mihi, do you suspect that Yunxin took the ruby?" My mother did not pursue further inquiries with Song Shanfu, instead directing her gaze toward Li Mihi. I did not intend to cast suspicion upon her, but she was the only one I saw during that time. I promised Shanfu to keep it safe. It was always in my pouch. Li Mihi began to choke on her words, her tone laden with grievance. The surrounding guests, drawn by the commotion, turned their attention towards us. "Yunxin, do you have anything to say?" My mother, sensing the escalating tension, turned her gaze towards me. "Mother, it was not I who took it. I met Wu Qingshu's eyes with unwavering resolve, responding firmly. My mother nodded in approval. Sensing the shift in momentum, Song Shanfu interjected, Mihi. I too believe Yunxin is not that kind of person. Let us search elsewhere. Li Mihi insisted on searching my belongings, her distrust evident. This ruby is worth a fortune. Even Changwei did not bestow upon her a birthday gift. She is merely envious of you. Upon hearing of the gem's value, Zhao Guizhi, standing amongst the crowd, clutched her handbag tightly, attempting to slip away unnoticed. I leaned closer to my mother, whispering a few words, and in an instant, she signaled to the household servants to secure the exits. Are you referring to the ruby that Qingwei gifted to Shanfu? The servants found it in the garden and have already delivered it to my study. It is merely a misunderstanding. Wu Qingshu raised her voice, employing a dignified manner to conclude the farce. Observing that Song Shanfu was about to speak further, her gaze shot over, the warning unmistakable. Zhao Guizhi finally realized the predicament. She was unable to leave while other guests came and went freely. Once my mother had reassured the guests, she led us, along with Zhao Guizhi, to the back courtyard. Now, do tell, what transpired? Wu Qingshu sipped her tea. Madam Song, I understand Shanfu is not your biological daughter, but you have been remarkably biased. This ruby was a birthday gift from Chengwei to her. Why then do you not reprimand Song Yunxin for allegedly stealing it? Li Mihi, lacking in wit, felt her dear friend had been wronged. And you, Shanfu, do you share this sentiment? My mother ignored Li Mihi's remarks and turned her inquiry to Song Shanfu. She bit her lip. Mother, Yunxin did not receive a gift from my brother. Were I in her shoes, I too would be vexed. However, this gift was procured with great effort by my brother. I could exchange another gift for this ruby. Each word she spoke implicated me without directly accusing. I chuckled, genuinely amused. Shanfu, I indeed found that ruby, and when I intended to present it to Mother, I encountered your biological mother. She said she would deliver it to you. Is it not so? Did you not receive it? I turned to Zhao Guizhi, who seemed taken aback. Did you take it out yourself? Or shall I summon someone to search you? Wu Qingshu's tone remained calm, yet the disdain in her eyes was unmistakable. I simply forgot to bring it out. Zhao Guizhi hastily unfastened her pouch and placed the gem into Wu Qingshu's hands. Song Shanfu stood frozen, her mouth agape, rendered speechless. Her eyes brimming with tears as she silently shook her head at Wu Qingshu, indicating her ignorance of the matter. Li Mihi too realized she had been used as a pawn. She cast a derisive glance at Song Shanfu and rose to push the door open. Wu Qingshu was no fool. She had long seen through this charade, yet she could hardly fathom that her daughter, whom she had raised for over a decade, could be so naive. To think she would attempt to employ such tactics to tarnish Yunxin's reputation before the nobility of the capital. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside, as Qin Xing, inebriated, kicked open the door, stumbling in with slurred words. Damn it, can't I attend my own daughter's coming-of-age ceremony? What do you all know? I'm about to enjoy a life of luxury. Soon, you'll all have to bow to me and call me Master Qin. Ha ha ha. Timing is everything. I turned to Song Shanfu, relishing the expression of despair and helplessness on her face. Someone, throw him out. Wu Qingshu rubbed her temples, feeling that the day had turned exceptionally dreadful. Zhao Guizhi hurriedly tugged at Qin Xing, attempting to escort him out, but her strength was no match for a drunken man, and she was swiftly shoved to the ground. Qin Sheng continued his drunken ramblings. My precious daughter, it's all thanks to your fortune that I have the privilege to reside in the Prime Minister's residence. He reached out to touch Song Shanfu's face, commenting on her youthful beauty. She's far prettier than that Jinx, Qin Yunxin. Ha ha ha. Hearing such vulgarities, Wu Qingshu could no longer contain herself. She summoned the household servants to drag the couple away, resulting in a chaotic scene. I sidestepped a wine bottle hurled by Qin Sheng, catching a glimpse of Song Shanfu's eyes filled with hatred. She despised me. I tilted my head and smiled at her, silently conveying, this is merely the beginning. Truly, how amusing it was. A flower that had never weathered a storm could not endure even this much. What, then, could be said of my life over the past decade? Just as I learned to walk, I was tasked with cooking for them, barely tall enough to reach the stove, yet responsible for the family's meals. Meanwhile, she luxuriated in a lavish mansion, feasting on delicacies she could scarcely dream of. It was laughable. I had merely peeled back a corner of the past. And she had begun to resent me. Having occupied the position of the Prime Minister's daughter for so long, did she feel no twinge of guilt towards me? The following day, Zhao Guizhi and Chen Xing were expelled from the Prime Minister's residence. Unwilling to accept their fate, they stood at the entrance, arguing loudly. The Prime Minister's residence seeks to seize our biological daughter. They disregard human life. We shan't live any longer. Wherever our daughter is, we shall be. This time, Wu Qishu did not show any mercy. She instructed the steward to pack Song Shanfu's belongings and sent her to the entrance of the Prime Minister's residence. Shanfu's heart shattered as she sobbed in anguish. I refuse to go. I am one of the Prime Minister's family. I do not wish to return with them. I want to see my mother. Miss Shanfu, this is the lady's wish. Please do not make it difficult for us, the steward conveyed with a stern demeanor. No. I do not believe you. Call for my father. He would never allow me to leave. Hurry, summon him. Song Shanfu's sobs had rendered her voice hoarse. The Lord has gone to the palace. You should hasten to pack your belongings and depart. You are not truly the legitimate daughter, are you? What do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like that? Song Shanfu shouted in despair. Her cries caught the attention of Song Chengwei. Shanfu. What is the matter? Song Shanfu suddenly threw herself into Song Chengyue's embrace. Brother, mother no longer wants me. She intends to send me back. You must go and persuade her. Taken aback, Song Chengwei instinctively asked, why? I do not know, brother. I truly do not know. Overwhelmed by fear. Song Shanfu's tears and snot mingled, leaving her in a pitiable state. Gritting his teeth, Song Chengwei took her by the hand and sought out Wu Qishu. I sat quietly in the adjoining hall, nibbling on a pastry while listening intently. Mother, why must you send Shanfu back? Did you not already take her as your adoptive daughter? Song Chengwei questioned, his voice strained. Why? You might as well ask her why she has known since childhood that she is not my biological daughter, or how she conspired against Yunxin, Wu Qingxu replied, looking at the crumpled figure of Song Shanfu on the ground. Did you think that we, the Song family, are mere imbeciles? Ever since we learned of Yunxin's plight, we have dispatched individuals to inquire at our ancestral home. At this point, Wu Qishu tightened her grip on the letter in her hand, her heart feeling as though it were being squeezed. Villagers had reported that Yunxin was living in squalor, suffering abuse at the hands of Chen Xing and Zhao Guizhi. That she had survived thus far was a testament to her own resourcefulness. And you, my daughter whom I have coddled for 15 years, discovered at the tender age of 8 that you were not my flesh and blood. You even sought out Zhao Guizhi through the midwife from that year. Over the years, while I can comprehend your support of them, I cannot fathom that you would allow them to harm Yunxin. Wu Qingxu closed her eyes and beckoned Song Chengwei closer, pushing the letter toward him. Read for yourself. Thankfully, Chen Xing and his wife were too cowardly to commit murder, yet they plotted to disfigure Yunxin. Even if she were to be recognized in the future, we would ensure she would remain hidden. You shall forever be the sole daughter of the Song family. At such a young age, your schemes run so deep, it truly astounds me. The more Song Shanfu listened, the colder her heart became, feeling as though all hope was lost, and she laughed maniacally. You are foolish. People have always said that my mother and I do not resemble each other. The older I got, the more I heard it. I was terrified, mother. I was truly terrified. What if I am not truly your daughter? What should I do? Song Shanfu slowly lifted her head. But it does not matter. I am quite clever. With just 500 taels of silver, I located Zhao Guizhi through the midwife from that time. She was overjoyed and said she would take me home. But how could I? As the daughter of the Song family, how could I return to that filthy, stinky straw hut? I deserve to be surrounded by servants, draped in silks and satins, just as you have raised me. At this juncture, Song Shanfu no longer harbored hopes of remaining in the Song residence. Yet, fear still gripped her. This terror persisted until she laid eyes on Chen Yunxin's face. How could it resemble yours so closely? She appeared to be carved from the same mold as you. I immediately ordered Zhao Guizhi to have her killed. Only then could I find peace. With a derisive laugh, Song Shanfu remarked that they were too timid to take action, even failing in their attempt to disfigure her, which ultimately granted Chen Yunxin the opportunity to return to the Song residence. Why did you do this? Wu Qishu asked, perplexed. Even if Yunxin returns, the Song family will still accept you as an adopted daughter. There would be no difference. That is not the same. An adopted daughter and the legitimate daughter of the Song family are entirely different. Song Shanfu suddenly straightened, shouting vehemently. Hearing this, I emerged from the adjoining hall. Upon seeing me, Song Shanfu was not surprised. Instead, she managed a cold smile. Actually, I remember you. Qin family village is too impoverished. Yet you stood out in your splendid garments, strikingly beautiful. I crouched down slowly, feeling envy and yearning. Zhao Guizhi loved to drink, and when intoxicated, she would ramble. She claimed I was born to be a lowly wretch. What difference does it make if I am the daughter of the Song family? I still must serve her by washing clothes and cooking. The first time, I thought it was merely drunken talk. By the second, third, and fourth times, it weighed on my mind. I secretly saved money and followed the village ox cart to the capital, where I finally reunited with my mother. That was your last visit to the Qin family, and I happened to see you. I smiled gently, if not for your lack of trust. Returning to the Qin family repeatedly, I would never have considered coming to the capital. My return to the Song residence was indeed thanks to you. Upon hearing my words, Song Shanfu fell into a profound silence. I gazed at the despondent woman on the ground, then turned to my mother. After 15 years of dislocation, it was time to return to the starting point, was it not? Wu Qixu was already in tears, while Song Chengwei clutched the letter, his expression vacant. Noticing my gaze, he lowered his head in shame. Song Shanfu was sent back to the Qin family. Deprived of money, Zhao Guizhi and Chen Xing reverted to their former ways, not only beating and scolding her but also seeking to marry her off to a widower in the village for a paltry bride price. She had come to the Song residence for help, but I instructed that she be ignored and not mentioned.